It's 5 o'clock, and we'd like to call the Budget Committee to order. Do we have anyone that would like to address the committee? In old business, we have none. In new business, we've got the school department presentation with Dr. Jeff Perry. Perry?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, staff, certainly do appreciate the opportunity to come out here with you this evening. As always, we appreciate everything that the commission does for us. We have presented you with a packet of information. So just very quickly, I know that the commission knows most of this, but the budget components we have, they're really 5 different pieces. First is our operational budget, which is normally what you guys are concerned about. This is the money that we get from the state and then local governments. Then we have that federal program, and we had a ton of money that came to us, $30 million or so this year in ESSER money. That was one time for very specific things like learning loss, buying computers to fight with some of the COVID kind of issues. So one-time money, we will spend all that within the next 2 years. Then there's some regular programs within that federal money that is specifically designated for certain things. You've probably heard of Title I, Title II, Title IX, Title III, and then special ed. So that money is for very specific things, and we really can't use that money outside of those specific categories. Then you may or may not know this, we have the food service, and unlike many counties, our food service is totally self-sufficient. So food service pays for all the salaries, the benefits, the equipment, the food, so everything comes out of their program. So the money they make from the meals is the money that they use to pay all their staff. So we don't put money into that, and a lot of counties do. They have to supplement the food service. We have another little program that you see in our books. It's called the Extended School Program, or ESP. What we've done with that is that we simply provide a service for parents. They pay for that service, but we'll watch their kids in the morning before school and watch them after school. And in that way, if they have to go to work early, they can drop their kids off. If they got to stay a little bit late, then we'll watch them to 6 o'clock. But again, that program is self-sufficient too. If you remember, I guess a year and a half ago, we came and said we need a little bit of money because we were trying to keep essential workers. We never did use that money. We were able to make it through, but that one is totally self-sufficient. And then we've got our fund balance. That's the money that we kind of have in our reserves, or kind of like what we would have in savings. So if you want to look at this from all sources, well, and what ended up happening, I apologize for this, if I don't know if it's correct in your packets or not, but we did have some problems with this today, is that anytime you have a different PowerPoint on your computer, it will change. So these category names, if you'll look on your 3rd page, it does have the names in there, but when we switch over, no, you're fine with that because they can kind of see. And basically what we're looking at with this is that the state revenue, that's the 46%. The state provides about 46%. This year, the federal government provided 20%. And again, that's because of all that money. And then the local was about 23%. Now, in normal years, this is what we would have, is that about 62% would come from the state. And again, I apologize that the PowerPoint's a little bit different on every computer, but the county would put in about 29%. So state would put in 62%, local would put in about 29%, and then we get the other percentages there from other sources. So again, state's paying about 62%, almost 30% from the county, and we certainly do appreciate that. One of the things that I want to point out to you here, and again, you can see that on the chart that we included in your handout, is that 62%, so this big pie chart here, that blue area, 60 or 82% of every dollar that we spend goes to salary and benefits. So 82 cents out of every dollar that we spend goes to people. Those people, most of them live here, most of them shop here, most of them put that money back into the community. And then you can see that some other categories around here, debt service is 0.5%, textbooks is 1%, capital outlay is about 4%. So, but I think the most important thing out of this entire chart is that top left-hand corner, is that 95% of every dollar that we spend in salary and benefits goes to somebody within the school. So of all the money that we spend, 95% of that goes to somebody in the school. So a custodian, a teacher, an instructional aide, a librarian, somebody working in the school. So we really feel good about this, that most of our money that we're spending goes to people working in the school, because there's always that thing, we'll get rid of all the people in central office, get rid of all the people that's not working within the schools. The very big part of what we spend are people within the schools. Okay, here is, we like to always take you through the budget. If we look through every single line item, and you do have that in your budget books, but we know that becomes extremely complicated. So what we've always done since I've been here, we're doing everything that we did last year unless we're telling you we're changing it. So what we've done this year is we're looking at revenue in your first table. With that, the BEP increase, the state gave us about $783,000 this year. So gave us about $750,000. We also include attrition, and what we do with attrition, that if we have a veteran teacher leaves, that's toward the top of the scale, we normally hire somebody back at the bottom of the scale, and so we would save $20,000, $30,000. And so with this, we're saving about $685,000 we're projecting. Actually, the Tennessee retirement system went down this year, which was good. Normally that doesn't happen. That went down almost $500,000. And then we did lose 6 teachers due to enrollment. That we have lost some students, so we've reduced the number of teachers we've had. Also, we're reducing student drug testing. We didn't use that amount of money that we had in there last year, so we took $40,000 out of that out. We took $26,000 out for stipends for some staff development. And then we also took out the instructional facilitators. If you remember, a couple years back, we asked the county commission to help us fund these just for 2 years to get us through. We extended a 3rd year because the pandemic just created so many problems for us. But those now are returning back to the classroom, so we saved $244,000. And then, of course, we don't know what the county commission is going to give us. So the additional revenue we had is about $2.7 million. So that's how much more money we have. So now we look at the expenditures, and these are things that we consider to just be essential. We really feel like we've got to give our folks at least a 2% increase. With gas going up the way it is, with utilities going up, with the price of milk, everything going up. We just don't think our folks could survive without some kind of increase. Then we're given a step increase, and that is that from 1 year to the 2nd year, you get a step increase. And sometimes that step increase is $200, $300, depending on where you are. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that, but everybody gets a step increase. Then the degree changes. If you've got a master's degree and you got a doctorate degree, we give some money for that for educational attainment. Health insurance, as you guys probably know, went up. And then the property liability, workers' comp, cyber insurance, all of that went up. We had to end up increasing our diesel fuel by $110,000. That when we budgeted this, you know, gas was $2 something, and now it's over $4. Of course, diesel is even higher than that. We don't see that going down anytime in the short term, so we really had to budget a little bit more for that. Utility increases are going up. We did have a preschool that we put in Fairview that cost us about $110,000, but we got a state grant to do $90,000 of that. So all we're doing, paying for that teacher, is about $20,000 for that program. Then software, internet increases are going up. The state travel, you probably realize that too, that state travel went up from, I believe, 48 cents to 50-some cents or whatever, 58.5, and so we had to increase that up a little bit because of the travel increase. And then the Grow Your Own, we've got a couple kids that are finishing up on the Grow Your Own that we're going to make those teachers. So that's about $34,000, and then some honorariums that we have. So of the essential things that we really feel like we got to do that we promised folks is $2.8 million. Then additional things that we'd like to do is that we need to have an additional teacher in ESL or numbers. That's the teachers working with some of our students who are struggling with the language a little bit. We've grown in some of our ESL students, so we need one more teacher there. And then we also need another teacher at Lincoln Heights Elementary School. So we reduced 6, but we had to include one more because their numbers are going up at Lincoln Elementary and they're going down in some other schools. Then we'd like to actually expand our Grow Your Own program by another 10 students, and that program is students that have gone to school here in Hamlin County, students who have deep roots in Hamlin County. They're going to school right now to become teachers, and what they do is they go 2 years at Walter State, then they go to Western Governors University, and then they actually, while they're going to school, all that's online, they actually come back and work for us 25 hours a week, and we put them with a mentor teacher, and then they've got a contract with us that they come back and work with us 5 years, or they got to pay everything back. But it really gives us a good streamline into some math, science, special ed, some of the ones that we feel really strongly that we need, high priority. And we have just, the group that we're finishing up with right now are just an incredible group of young men and women, and so we're real excited about that. Then there's a small Region 1. We actually work with all 18 schools in Region 1. We're all going to a staff development day on one day, and we're bringing some of our folks in to do some training, and we need to be able to spend just a little bit of money on that. So the things that we think are a priority are $233,000. So this is where it comes down to, going back on line item 1, the total revenue is 2.7. If we do the essentials, that's 2.8. With the priority expenditures, 233. So the total expenditures, a little over $3 million. So the number that's important is we're at a deficit of 372. Now, Miss Antrican always complains a little bit that I round up in these just to keep things simple. So the final number we're asking for is a little bit different than this, but it's just because I round it up. But this is about where we are. When we began to talk, some of our board members were very concerned that 2%, with inflation maybe going up almost to double digits, 2% wouldn't keep our teachers at a cost of living that was actually, you know, that we could live with. And especially, and I think you're probably seeing this same issue, some of our classified folks, our custodians, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, those individuals are really struggling, and try to just give a 2% raise in this is just, it's not even keeping their head above water. They would actually take home less money than they would right now. So what we looked at is that we looked at in line item number 1 there, our deficit, if we gave a 3%, would be over $1 million that we'd have to come and ask you guys for. If we actually did a deficit in line item 3, if we gave them 4%, we would have to come to the county commission and ask for $1.6 million. I talked to our board about that and said, guys, that's not, you know, that's not a financially responsible thing. We cannot go to the county commission and ask for that kind of money. It puts you guys in a bad situation. You've got to say no to us, and it creates some hard feelings. And so what we did is we actually worked out table 7, that we would give the 2% raise under the operating budget. And then in line item 3 and 4, we would give a bonus out in December because we did get a little bit extra money in sales tax that's allocated to us that went into the general. And so we would take that money in the fall and give them a bonus in the fall, and then we would give them a 1% bonus in April. And so that way we gave them a 4%, but we only have to ask for the 372 from the county commission to do that. And again, that latter part, that's non-recurring money because we're giving that out of that. So that doesn't include maintenance of effort or anything of that nature. So what we're doing on our end in the budget that the school board passed, give a 2%, that's in reoccurring money. Then we're taking money out of our savings, out of that general fund, just to give folks a 1% bonus in the fall and a 1% bonus in the spring. But the thing that we did do with this is we capped that bonus, so whatever the highest paid teacher made, nobody gets over that. So if it was a superintendent or assistant superintendent, we don't get any bigger bonus than the highest paid teacher. So if the highest paid teacher got a $1,000 bonus, that's all that we could make. So we wanted to make sure that, yes, sir.
Just on teacher salary,
Yes, it was only on teacher salary. So we took the highest paid teacher that we have, saw what she would make on this 1% bonus, and then that's the cap. So everybody gets up to that cap, but nobody goes over the cap. We actually have done that several times, that we didn't give administrators any more than what we gave teachers. We just didn't think that was fair. So, yes, sir.
In lieu of a raise, and you're giving these bonuses out, well, you're gonna have a small raise, but in lieu of a larger raise, what are you gonna do next year?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So, now what we are doing is that this is one-time money, and this is what we talked to our board about, because some were advocating to go back up in line item number 1 there and do a 4% raise. The only way we could have got that money is to ask you for $1.6 million, which I think is unlikely. Now, if I'm wrong, then we'll go ahead and take it this evening, but I don't think the county is ready to do a $1.6 million raise in maintenance of effort. So the only option we had was to do it with non-reoccurring funds. That's what you do with a bonus. It goes away. But next year, and we'll get into this in the next slide, is that we do have the Tennessee Investment and Student Achievement funding that's coming in next year. We anticipate that we're going to get about $12 million additional money with that. And so what we can do is that we can backfill with that $12 million to take care of this. But we're not promising folks that 1% and 1%. We're only giving it as a one-time bonus, and it's non-reoccurring. But what we do think next year, with the $12 million, it would cost us about 1.6 to cover that. And so we can take the 1.6 out of the 12 million and get us to that 4% reoccurring balance. Does that make sense or not? Have I explained that?
It does, but down the road, it seems like teachers aren't gonna make out so good. Being in the fact you're gonna have the $12 million, next year you're gonna backfill into that 1 million. What's going on year 2, year 3, year 4?
Because now what we are anticipating is that when we start the school year next year, so they got 4% this year, 2% in a raise, 2% in a bonus. So they would make out this year the same thing as we gave 4%.
Correct.
Next year, and of course I'm not going to be in charge of this, but the thing that we anticipate and the thing that we talked to the school board about is that when we start, and we do think we'll get the additional money in the Tennessee investment funding formula. So what we can do is we can take that $12 million, and before we do anything else with it, is to go ahead and take the 1.6 and make sure that's taken out first. Then, to give them any raise on top of that, it would go through this same process that we're going through right now. So that we would go back to the process of...
You're gonna think you're gonna get it next year, right? Is there a guarantee of that?
You know, I talked to the board about this, and this is why we went with a 1% bonus, is that hope is never a good budget strategy. So because there was some conversation about just giving a 4% and then paying for it next year, and we did talk some board members out of that, of saying that in good conscience, I can't use one-time money in hope of anticipating this money and doing that. So this is the most financially responsible thing, because now we did get some extra sales income, or not income, but sales tax.
Yeah.
So, and it was very good this year. And so we took that money to give our folks, you know, who still went through the pandemic and did all that stuff of coming to school every day. But I don't think, unless there is a major turnaround in the state economy, which right now we're still actually seeing an upward trend to that, we actually anticipate that things are going to be okay. But as you mentioned, we never base a budget on hope or even 100% believing that the state is going to do something, because you all know 2 years ago they promised us a certain amount of money, and then after we issued contracts they said, I would like to supply you with that money, but we don't have it, and we're concerned, and so they took money back from us. So we never anticipate, but this plan right here gives our folks 4%. We pay for it. We're clean at the end of the year.
I just see 2 or 3 years down the road, teachers aren't going to fare so well. I mean, it's great right now, the way you're doing this, the plan's great. And I'm all for the teachers, I want them to get a raise, but maintenance of effort down the road, I don't think is going to be.
Commissioner Goins?
Maintenance of effort will be, I'm going to talk about that next.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I was going to say. The new funding formula will benefit our county at some point. He can probably go into this, but when you say down the road, I think that's part of pay raises for teachers going down the road from state funding.
Yeah.
So, and it'll go directly to the teachers, I believe.
It is, because part of the stipulation with that money is we do have to hit certain targets with teacher increases. So there will be certain requirements.
But if you pay attention to the news, I think we're headed toward a recession,
Could be.
and that's where it's going to hurt us.
And again, guys, the thing that we are doing with this budget, and I hate you all missed the conversation we had across the street a couple of weeks ago, but we had that conversation that there is no promise of money in 6 months. Well, there's a promise, but there's a difference between a promise and them writing a check. And so we wanted to be conservative. And then this is what I think this is conservative piece. Still gives folks a 4% raise while things are good, and things are good right now. If things do go bad, then we're at a point that we have not overcommitted ourselves. Now, if things do continue to go well, you know, the guy that's coming here after me will expect, you know, to be good to us and let all of us enjoy the benefits. But this kind of, I think, is that fine balance between giving folks some money while it's good, and if we do hit the recession, it's a situation where we've not overcommitted ourselves.
Dr. Perry,
Yes, sir.
a little off of this subject, what exactly can we use the ESSER money for?
Okay. There are 4 or 5 main categories, but predominantly, and there were 3 different ESSER funding, so ESSER 1, 2, and 3. That first ESSER was just trying to get kids educated through the pandemic. So, and Tracy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the first ESSER, we used most of our money to buy 10,000 computers to just get kids educated at home if we had to be out of school. So the first pot of money went toward that. The second part and the third part, they said that we could use it for learning loss, summer school, after school tutoring to catch kids up. The other part that they said that we could use is again for technology and some of those things. The third thing, which was kind of a little bit strange in it, I kind of thought, but they said that we could use it for CTE. So anything, because that was the governor's push, and I think that as they begin to use some of that, and it's also at a national level, but we could use it for career and technical training. Then a lot of what we use the other part of the money for is capital improvements. And initially, there were pretty rigid requirements to say that if you're going to use it for capital improvement, it's got to be for something that would improve the health and safety. So a lot of us used it for HVAC systems to kind of get better air in and exchange. And then if you made a case, which we did, that Lincoln Elementary was in such bad shape that it was better to start a whole nother school. So of that one, of the 20 million or so we got out of ESSER 3, was it 20 million? Of the 20 million, we spent 10 million of that, half of it on capital improvements, 5 million at Lincoln Elementary, and then 5 million on Lincoln Middle. So the ESSER money, that will be gone in 2 years.
ESSER 2 goes away in 2023, and then ESSER 4 we can use through 2024.
Okay. So that money's got a short shelf life on it, plus we have to write a plan, and we said we're doing this. And I guess it's been almost a year ago, We shared some of that about this money was, and this was our plan, but it was mainly capital in this last one.
You can use it to replace a roof on school or windows.
Probably, if it was air quality
Air
or
quality.
something, safety, if the roof was falling in, then you could use it for that. You had to tie it, and they were first very, very hesitant. It has gotten a little bit more lenient, but it had to deal with something. The way the original law was written, it had to pertain to safety and health. So, like HVAC systems about purifying the air and getting the air exchange. And then they got a little bit more loose with, I didn't hear a lot of people talk about roofs. Some folks may have done it, but mainly it was HVACs. But now they did go with school security officers and some other kind of things that was a physical safety piece. But you had to tie it with safety. I'll go over this last slide, and then I'll summarize things, and then I'll take questions. I know that the thing that Mayor Britton is concerned about, and I'm sure some things that the commission is concerned about, is maintenance of effort. So what's all this money? If the state's going to give us a ton of money, what is the county's portion of that? So if you look at this particular one, this is a future year TESR projection. So what is going to be the local? So if you go down to the second to last column, this is the local commitment, of 24.4 million. It actually goes down 22.2. Then it goes up to 22.2. So, what is that? $70,000, $80,000 in 1 year, and then in 26, it goes up to 369. So you can see across through this about how much the commitment from the locality would be to get $12 million. So as we looked at this, and certainly I don't sit on the commission, but I kind of felt like if the state is going to put in this amount of money, the amount of money that we would be paying and putting into this locally, and again, think in mind, this goes out to fiscal year 30. So this is way down the road that we're increasing, by that amount, $500,000, I guess, or so, over the next 8-9 years. So that, that's not even going to keep up with inflation kind of piece of what we've got to put in with the county. Now, if a recession or something happens that there's an economic turndown, that's going to adjust the line above the local. And if that line above the local of the state, if that reduces, then there's going to be reductions that'll have an impact on everything else. Okay? So I'll just summarize with this. It does provide our teachers with, it provides everybody with 4% raise. With the exception of the cap piece, because again, the 2% bonus. We really feel like if you're at the superintendent level, or if you're at assistant superintendent level, 2% for you is going to be more than a teacher, and since teachers are the most important folks we have in the building, cap it at 2%. I think it is financially responsible, because Ms. Goins, the one thing that we were worried about, if things go wrong, have we overcommitted ourselves? And it's much like a mortgage. If you start taking money out of your savings for a mortgage that's going to happen every single month, you're in trouble. If you take savings out and you got enough in savings to buy a bass boat, then that's okay maybe. But if you're taking money out of savings every month to pay for that bass boat, that's a non-winning situation. So it's a situation here that we think this is the most financially responsible, and it also requires minimum cuts. All we have to do is we're reducing 6 teachers. Now, nobody's going to lose their job. These are teachers that a school has left, resigned, retired, and they don't get to replace that particular person. So nobody loses a job. It's just that we don't replace those people. We get it out of attrition. It also meets all the state requirements for the raises that are mandatory for us to get the state money. So, number 5, the request that we have is that if you do remember, you gave us a one-time supplement last year of $307. if you don't remember that, then just forget about that and we'll just move on. But I would suspect at some point in time you would remember that. And so there was a one-time that you gave us last year of 307. Now, letter B is where the rounding part comes in. If you'll look at this, I told you it was 372. Actually, what we need to balance the budget is 365,554 and 56 cents. So you can see Mr. Attrition at work there. So we're down to actually the penny on that particular part. So the request is the 307 is already in the budget. It was allocated as one-time money. So we would like to have that back. If not, then our deficit is actually at almost 670. But to get the money from last year and then help us with this request for this year. So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'll stop at this point and then I'll entertain any questions that the commission may have.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a few questions?
Please.
What are you guys projecting that your fund balance will be at the end of this year that we're in now?
A little over $15 million. And then we budgeted 5.7 million for capital, the 2% one-time bonus, and our school buses and maintenance fee.
Ms. Attrition, did you anticipate that we'll get that revenue, though, from the taxes? Is that what I understood during the presentation?
Yes, the sales tax increase this year will roll into our fund balance for next year. The excess over budget.
So that, you're asking the 365 to balance the budget,
Yes, sir.
provided that you have the 307 from last year,
Correct.
and within that would be the maintenance of effort of some level. Is that,
However you guys decide to do that,
Right.
yes.
so back to the projection page, when we go to the TISA formulas, local money, according to this, next year is 24 million. Am I reading that right? Yeah. And then it drops down to 22 million, but the state funding raises, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And our maintenance of effort, though, it looks like it increases just slightly through the next, until year 30. Is that correct? I mean, it's gentle. From what I understand, this new funding formula will be easy on the county.
Guys, I really feel, and you've got to kind of, I think, look at this, is that the state has put in a tremendous amount of money
It's like
in education. What was it? $1 billion?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. And some of that has got to be our responsibility. So if you look at that throughout fiscal year 30, they put in over $12 million for all that time, and it's costing us $500,000 up to that point. You know, we've been talking about $200,000, $300,000 each year that I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's less than what we budgeted almost every year. So I think if the state follows through with this, it's a tremendous investment. But if that goes down, then everything else could have a corresponding decrease to it.
Well, it's my understanding it is, this new funding body is in place to begin.
They did approve it, yes.
Yes.
So that, I mean, I guess that everything is always subjective to funding.
Sure.
But the legislature did pass that, and there seemed to be quite a bit of support for that.
And of the 12 million new money or that you're expecting next year, that's good to use at your discretion, or is there any tags on that?
There are some tags on it. There's teacher raises, some things that are associated with that. But from everything that we've read so far, all the fine print is not out there yet, but there does seem to be more flexibility with this than a lot of other increases that we had. But again, if you'll go back to that first chart that we said, 82% of everything that we spend is on people.
Right.
And then 95% of that is on people within the school. We still think that should be where we should commit things to. We got to take care of our facilities. But at the same point in time, we got to take care of our people too.
Will any of that 12 million have to be used to pay the salaries of those people that are in the school budget that are not covered by the state?
Yes.
How many positions would you estimate?
Tracy, we figured it out one time. How many was it? 20? About, and you, not everybody may understand that, but the BEP, that's how we're funded. That says we're going to pay you for this number of staff. Well, I think under the BEP, I don't think that any of our middle schools would have an assistant principal. And, you know, couldn't imagine going to at a middle school without an assistant principal. And so we did have to include some other positions beyond what's in the BEP, 25 positions. So, yeah, the BEP does not fully fund everything.
Will the TISA money help in that as far as
Certainly.
funding? Okay, is there a parameter on the same amount of student or teacher administrations that won't be?
A couple of things did go up. I think that they may have, and again, I've not seen the final piece of this. Tracy, didn't the amount of maybe school nurses or counselors go up?
They stated that the ratio for nurses and counselors
Okay.
increased, and it was to be included as a part of the increase for
So there was a couple little things that they said that clearly the pandemic showed us that school nurses are critical. And
And so-
counselors are critical.
Some of that is just for 2 years, right? Like you increased guidance counselors for 2 years, that drop off?
No, that was from the ESSER money.
Okay.
So what we decided to do with that first part of the ESSER money is that we hired 2 additional counselors at the high schools, 1 at each high school, just to help us through, but that drops off in 2 years. What Mr. Cutshaw is talking about is that this new funding formula requires us to have more counselors per student than the old one did. And I think it's counselors and school nurses.
And that would be included in the state's money?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would, to receive the state money, we would have to meet those requirements.
Leads me to one more question for now. SROs, have you got any new plan or expansion on SROs for your schools? And
We do, of
and
course.
how will that be affected?
The situation that happened in Texas kind of, again, demonstrated the concern. And I believe I talked to the county commission about this, but perhaps I did not. But we have talked to the county and to the city, because they have been super to us. Everything that we've needed, they've tried to work with us, and we could not ask for a better relationship between the city and the county in terms of law enforcement. But they got their own problems. I think the last time that we talked to the city, they were down 14 officers that they just couldn't replace, and the county is down several. And so it was a situation to where we chose to go with school security officers. So in a school security officer, we're hiring those individuals, but they would go through the same training that a school resource officer would go through. So they're still going through the post-certification training over at the college, just like a regular law enforcement officer would go to. The only thing is they're not an active member, so we can't really call them a school resource officer, but we're still going to bond them. So those individuals can carry a weapon. They can't arrest anybody, but they can interject themselves if there was a violent situation. So we ended up adding 3 positions with that. Now, some of it was just backfilling the positions that we'd never been able to to fill in the first place, because we were down 2 school resource officers for part of the year, and I think we remain 1 down throughout the whole school year, just because the city and the county couldn't provide us any, because they had to have people working the roads and doing other things.
With that in mind, all of our schools are secure, aren't they?
We do have a buzz-in system with every single school that we have.
All doors are locked.
Yes, they are. We go through a lot of trouble of making our schools safe. The millions of dollars we put in can be hindered by somebody putting a rock in the door, just because they don't want to unlock the door at recess. But the other problem that we do have is in the morning when kids are coming in, it's just not practical to buzz, 1,500 kids in at the high school. So there's a period of time that the doors are open. But then after that, everything is locked down and you have to buzz to get in, and then we have to identify you. And over at East High School, for example, we've got a new system in there that when you go in, you actually have to turn in your driver's license, and then they will check that driver's license to make sure that you're not under any kind of outstanding warrants, or that you're not in a situation you shouldn't be in a school. So we're continuing to look at things. And again, as we mentioned to you a couple months ago when we talked about Lincoln Elementary School, in my research, I don't know of a single child or teacher that was shot in a room that was locked. All the studies show that an armed intruder will not take the time to enter a locked room. They go for easier targets. I know in the movies it shows everybody shooting locks off, but that doesn't really happen with these armed intruders. They will bypass a locked room and go to the most easy target, and that's why we really felt that our open classrooms, that was the first thing that we wanted to improve on in our facilities, of giving teachers an option of getting behind a locked door and getting out of harm's way that way.
What about arming some of your personnel, teachers?
That is a much more complicated concept. And I know that some states have actually gone in that direction. So that would have to be something that the state would have to deal with, and then also our school board would have to deal with. There are some individuals, I think, under a pressure situation would do extremely well. I think the thing that we have seen, even with trained law enforcement, any distance at all increases the likelihood that somebody else could be shot, because a handgun is not extremely accurate unless it's at close range. And I know there's some officers that can, are incredibly accurate. Some of our staff members may not be able to deal with the pressure and the stress and the quickness, and then some weapons, you don't even have to worry about the person you're shooting. You got to worry about the person behind you too, because most of these weapons wouldn't stop. And so it's complicated, but that will be something that is up for debate right now in many states, about if you had specialized training, would it be safe to arm, certain staff members who would go through the training and that you felt were capable of making good decisions in an incredibly stressful situation.
So, Dr. Perry, in summary, you're asking for 307,841, which was not a maintenance of effort last year. And in
Correct.
addition to that, you're asking for another 365,554.56 for a total of 673,395.56.
I didn't do the math there, but I
Okay.
trust that
Okay.
that's correct. So it's those two numbers together.
And that
the
one
307
is,
already in the budget, so that wouldn't be an increase in what you're doing. It would just be giving us what you had last year.
and so we also need to determine how much is a one-time
Correct.
fee for this.
And all this is non-MOA money, right?
That's up to you guys. You know, we always like to have it in maintenance of effort, but we also understand that's not always what we walk away with. So, whatever the commission, is interested in doing, you know, we're definitely, we would love to have it in reoccurring money, but we also know we've got some money coming potentially. If we could just get through this year to make sure that we took care of our people, that's our primary mission right now.
And Ms.
And-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go
Go ahead, sir.
No, after you.
Well, I think the thing that we're doing is that while we're asking for $365,000, if you would go back to that very first page that we had, a 2%, well, down to where the revenue was, a 2% raise for us is $650,000. So what we're basically asking for is to help us with a 1% raise, is what we're asking for. And then we'll take care of the degree changes, we'll take care of the insurance increases, we'll take care of all the rest of that stuff. And so a 1% is basically, is what we're asking for help this year.
Can I ask another question? Please. Tracy, on your revenue for next year's budget that we're talking about, you just kept it the same, is that right, on the revenue side? What's budgeted this year, it's exactly the same next year. Okay. And one more question. If we go to the table for the projection out to 2030, now, if the maintenance of effort, our maintenance of effort is 27,663, right, now?
Our actual maintenance of
Yeah.
effort,
Yeah.
the actual amount contributed is 27.
Okay, what's our maintenance of effort?
The required maintenance of effort under the BDP is 23.8. They have 24.4, but on our April estimate, it was 23.8.
But our maintenance of, I mean, what we contribute is 27.
Yes,
That's,
that's the actual contribution.
right.
But, so that's more than what's required.
But we can't lower that. In year 24, 25, 26, 27, we can't lower that. That's my
Under
understanding.
maintenance of effort, we're allowed to budget the exact same amount, at least the exact same amount we budgeted this prior year. So the budgeted amount hasn't stayed.
So just to make sure that we're all clear, the local contribution throughout to 2030 would have to be the 27.6.
Our understanding that they're lowering the maintenance of effort under TISA to the 22.2 is what's required.
So the
Partly,
county,
you've already, you're paying more
right,
than what they're stating you gotta provide. So I think,
I guess where I'm going, Dr. Perry, is I agree with what you guys are saying, but it's my understanding is we can't fund less than what we're doing now. Over the next 5 years, we don't have to do more to meet the funding formula, but we can't do less than what we're doing right
I
now.
would think that would be a safe, financially responsible decision. Now, I think what they're saying is maybe you can, but I don't think I would recommend to the commission, if I were in your position, to say we can lower that,
Okay.
at least planning wise. Mr. Chair, I think you had a question?
Yes, 15 million in surplus this year, was that correct, Ms. Attrition? And then what was it last year? I can't remember.
We were a little over 13 million.
How much?
13.
Now, how much of that have you committed to the new Lincoln Elementary School?
We've got 5 million in ESSER, so that comes out of a different pot.
Okay.
So
Has any come out of Okay.
So,
Now, at this point in time, now we're worried about opening bids here in a month. I think you guys have already seen the sticker shock of that. But right now, we had an estimate of right at 28 million. We got 22 from you guys plus the 5 that we had got us to that. So, and we had the other 5 million that was going to Lincoln Middle that we can shift over to Lincoln Elementary if we need to. So we think we're probably going to need all that to probably get through.
I know you're projecting to do some renovation to the current Lincoln Elementary. Have you got that in your projected budget?
No, now what, we never were going to do any to Lincoln Elementary. We were going to do it to Lincoln Middle, but we were going to use part of Lincoln Elementary for additional space. So the way that we had it planned is that of the 20 million we got from ESSER, 5 million or 5.2 million, it was a little over 5 million, was going to Lincoln Elementary, the construction of the new Lincoln Elementary. And then we had 5 million going to some HVAC situations in heat and air with Lincoln Middle. But what I'm saying right now, with the increase in steel, asphalt, concrete, everything, we think the bid for Lincoln Elementary is going to be increased, and that's probably our top priority right now. So we would shift funding from that probably to just cover that increase. I mean, we will have some conversation. I'm sure the next person will come in and have a conversation about those increases, but that's our plan right now to cover that gap that we do anticipate will happen. Because when we started this 2 years ago, I don't think any of us would really projected that steel was going to go up 300%, that asphalt would go up, concrete, that we would be, I mean, I know you've all done it, but to go in and buy a 2x4 that we bought for $1.97 2 years ago, they were $8 the other night when I walked in. So, that kind of thing, none of us anticipated. Now, we did put in 10% increase, but we found out that 10%, it is going down some more. I mean, that's the good thing. And it may even be a situation that when we open up bids, if we're not comfortable with them and we see it going down, we may wait just a few months and rebid if we have to, if we see it going in the right direction. So, Mr. Chair, any other questions that I may answer for you?
Any questions?
This is probably not budget, but just while you're on the topic, the population that we're looking at in future endeavors, the school system may encounter with population increases. I mean,
Yep.
just a plan, anything addressed with that?
Well, over the last 2 years, we've probably lost close to 300 students.
Okay.
So at this point in time, if they came in the right places, we could handle 300 more kids. So of the 2,000 or so homes that are being built in apartments, we could handle 300 more kids and handle fairly comfortably. However, what we do know is those population shifts are not happening in the areas where we've got open spaces. And so the situation that we have done with some of the ESSER money, we did actually buy 2 mobile units to go out to John Hay, because with all the development that's going out over there, and we were already crowded. We were already teaching in some of the hallways, and the nurses was back in a very, very small, what we used to have as a closet. So we have already purchased some mobile units, and we're putting that up in anticipation of that.
Sure.
And then if we get Lincoln Elementary up and going, we could handle more kids at Lincoln Elementary, at the new Lincoln Elementary, than we have at the old one. We could actually rezone and do some things and alleviate.
Okay. That was the key thing. I was just wondering about utilizing the underused schools at this time. Population has decreased in some, and
We have talked to the board, and I think that the board is fully aware of that concept of full utilization. don't build new until you fully utilized every school that you got. And so we've had conversations about that. Now, sometimes it becomes very unpractical if you've got a school over here on one end of the county and they're completely full and your empty school is over here on the east side, then that creates, logistical issues that's hard to overcome. But if the schools are close enough, then we can rezone and take care of some of that.
Is there a particular reason why we've lost 300 and some students?
I think that the thing that we are seeing, it's just those kindergarten and early grades, people are just not having as many children as they've had before. That a lot of our non-Hispanic families are just not having the large families. It would not be uncommon at the high school to see a brother with 3 siblings, to have 4 people in that household. We're just not seeing it with the newer families that we're just not seeing those multiple student or multiple children families.
I think we need to determine if this should be one-time money before we move forward with anything. Should we,
Yeah, I'll make a motion, that'd be one-time money for,
all right, and would we do that just on what was there from last year, or would it be one-time money for all?
both, all of it.
All right. Do we have
Because we can always look
any
at it next year.
discussion?
No, not really. I'm not eligible to vote on this one.
Let's wait until we got it on the agenda where we're going to deliberate the school budget.
Yep.
By that time, I'm sure the mayor will have some recommendations and some additional figures for us, and we can make a wiser decision.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
All right. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mayor, certainly do appreciate the opportunity to always come out, and you guys have always been good to us every year that I've been here, and I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll be back next week and see you and go from there. So again, thanks for the opportunity. If any of you have any questions, Mr. Britton has my cell phone number, and I think all of you have my email address, so don't hesitate to call us, and we'll provide any additional information that we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
Do you
Thank
want the clicker back up? Okay. Thank you.
And the announcements on item 5, upcoming budget meetings are going to be June the 7th. This will be for the school department deliberations and open items and budget updates. On June the 9th, total budget, open items and budget updates. And then June 13th should wrap it up and we should have a proposed budget. On the 27th of June, we will try to adopt the budget. And I believe that's pretty much what we have right now. So if there's no other comments or discussions, then this meeting is adjourned.